Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time for Trader's Take. Now, as Bitcoin sees a massive uptick in price and dominance, we want to turn to the people who know what they're talking about when it comes to the crypto market, and they know it best. Joined as usual by BLOCKTV's analyst Joe Saz, and today with a guest as well. Speaking to us from Colorado is a technical analyst known online as Sawcruhteez. Hi guys, how are you?
Excellent.
Great.
Doing great.
Good to have you guys on, especially today. Yesterday, as I was telling you off camera just a moment ago, yesterday Joe was talking about organic movement and the market is moving naturally. And today we have this major surge with Bitcoin. What insights can you provide about that?
I guess before we jump into the charts, I don't really think there's any particular external narrative that's screaming buy right now. I think we had a couple people over the weekend saying like Bitcoin's going to be mooning this week. So, you know, we're probably looking at maybe some hopium in the space, maybe some
like a self-fulfilling prophecy type of thing.
Maybe a little bit of that. You know, it's interesting that it's like Bitcoin's kind of taking the thunder of Litecoin's halving. So that's kind of interesting. Before we jump into the charts though, Sock, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Nothing yet. I'm kind of flying blind without some charts in front of my face. I think that there's probably every weekend some people calling for Bitcoin to moon. So that's, I don't think anything out of the ordinary, but definitely some interesting price action that we've been seeing over the last 24 hours. So I'll be excited to dive right in.
Yeah, so let's start with the 15. So speaking of organic market activity, I will say, Oren, commenting on your specific thought, this would be the only thing that I see as inorganic. A pump, a pump immediately following a dump like this, where we've had a number of instances where fear was taking over the price action, right? But more particularly back a few days ago, there was a number of candles with steep wicks to the downside where we were just immediately eaten back up. I'll have to pull that up on another day because I don't have them singled out. But stuff like this where we have massive wicks to the downside, and I can't remember how far back this goes, and I don't want to just keep digging. But this would probably be the only inorganic thing that I see in this chart. And other than that, these buys being spaced out, you know, these are 15-minute candles, zooming in a little bit here. This is a little more normal to me. This just kind of smells like FOMO, you know, and that's something that the space is very familiar with. And the fact that we, you know, broke that key area that we were discussing on the daily, breaking above 10.6 to 10.8, which was kind of like a good shorting area, but we kind of destroyed that area and kept moving up. So now it's like the bullish momentum is continuing to grow in strength, and I just think that it's anything's on the table. Right now I'm kind of eyeing 12.5. But we'll have to see what happens. Sock, do you want to comment on the 15-minute, anything that you see here?
Yeah, I would just comment that I don't view that action as inorganic necessarily at all. That's something that I view as a pretty common price action in Bitcoin, where you will get a bit of a shakeout before a breakout. And this was one that was pretty ideal, if you ask me, because it pulled right back down and into a cross, a bullish cross with those moving averages. The short-term moving average crossed above the medium-term moving average as the price pulled back and into it, and then the candle wicked off that longer-term moving average that was turning up and trending upwards. So to me, that's a beautiful action that if I traded that time frame, I would very much be interested in buying after that candle.
Do you guys think that a plausible theory about this, right? We have news coming out of China that the currency is the lowest it has been in a decade, and now people are investing in Bitcoin, in gold. Do you see that as being the reason for these spikes?
Sock, you want to take that one?
Sure, I definitely think that that is causing for demand, and any sort of organic demand that comes from the world will have a ripple effect, where if there are people in China who are seeing their currency deteriorate and they don't have any real option other than converting to USD or potentially Japanese yen or getting into Bitcoin. And people in the eastern part of the world are very familiar with Bitcoin compared to the western part of the world. So if they're feeling any sort of pain and wanting to get out of their currency and into something else, then Bitcoin will be one of the top options. And that could cause everybody else in the world to sort of FOMO in along with them, like Joe said earlier.
Again, with that natural movement kind of coming to fruition, but again, kind of covering the Litecoin halving. So what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with that. That this is something, as far as like price action, steep upside price action from the masses are concerned. Yeah, the devaluation of currency, particularly in the East, where they're much more comfortable and familiar with this technology and adopting new digital technologies. I definitely see that as being the catalyst that every Bitcoiner has been looking for, right? It's just a matter of time before we see hyper Bitcoinization, due to the fact that central banking and other economic practices, politically speaking and whatever else, cause a devaluation of the native currency, the sovereign-backed currency. So it's just a matter of time before something like that happens. Is this what's happening? You know, it's a news article, and you know, I'm not going to jump on board the second I see that headline. But if that is the case, then this thing would probably be going much higher. So I'm not completely ruling that out as a possibility, but I'm saying that this is hyper Bitcoinization as a result of the devaluation of a sovereign-backed currency is definitely something that all of us Bitcoiners are expecting to happen. It's just a matter of time, and then it's going to be the momentum from something like that the moon is going to be the first stop. It's going to go way past that.
And then we're going to go buy our Lambos. But kind of this spike, right, in Bitcoin, generally when Bitcoin is affected, the rest of the market is as well, which is kind of what we're seeing here. Everything is kind of jumping. If we can get a little bit into Ethereum, you were not so positive with what's going on with Ethereum in general, but has that kind of shifted now? And is that shift permanent?
So we're looking at Ethereum now on the daily, and I think I had something similar drawn. It looks like Litecoin and Ethereum had a similar type situation where we had a flagpole and a breakout, but this isn't the same. I guess what I'm seeing here is just upside moves that are the result of probably Bitcoin taking moves to the upside. Quick look at Ethereum against Bitcoin. Just to take a quick, well, that's looking really ugly though. So Bitcoin's going way up, and Ethereum relative to Bitcoin, we're down 3%. Relative to the US dollar, value, we're up, 4%. So I guess this is looking good if you, have a little bit of US dollar in there, but and you're an Ethereum bull, an F-head. But right now, it's, relative to Bitcoin, it's declining in value. So I don't really see this as much of a win, but we are breaking through the intermediate term moving average. We're fighting it, and we're kind of losing a little bit. We'll have to see what we look like a number of hours from now on the close. But what do you see here, Sock?
I agree. It doesn't matter if the USD pair is going up. If it is underperforming Bitcoin, there is no reason to be in that cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is speculative enough in and of itself, and it is the market leader. If you are going to be investing in altcoins, the only objective would be to beat Bitcoin, and none of these alts are doing that right now. So don't fool yourself just because they're going up against the US dollar. They are greatly lagging behind Bitcoin, and it is not something I would want to be in.
So definitely no optimism when speaking there. Continue your thought, Joe.
Just we're not only at all-time lows, but we're continuing to seek further all-time lows. So
even worse than
exactly.
No optimism.
Yeah, it's just looking so terrible. We are on a weekly 9 buy relative to BTC. So I mean, I'm not an ETH bull. I really, again, I will tell you, I don't believe in this technology, but we are at all-time lows. So technically speaking, it's the last thing you want to do is keep getting lower and lower on a chart of all-time lows. So we'll have to see how this continues to play out. Maybe people are happy that they're Coinbase US dollar value is going up. But yeah, like Sock said, relative to Bitcoin, if everything else is crashing, then what's the point of being invested in any of these alts?
Right, but then kind of as we touched on earlier with Litecoin, we had the halving. It wasn't going up throughout. We knew this was coming, right? There was expectations that it would go up. Again, Charlie Lee said it wouldn't anyway because it was factored in, but it looks like today we are going up. And again, it's not necessarily due to the halving. Can you give us more insight into why Litecoin is spiking?
Yeah, I've got a couple charts that I could share real quick, if that's all right.
Yeah, pop them up.
At least one for Litecoin while we're on the subject. So this is one that I've been following very closely over the past couple months. This is a chart I posted on TradingView a little bit back, just kind of showing the fractal nature of Litecoin's price action leading up to the halving, leading up to the Litecoin halving, following the Litecoin halving, and leading up to the Bitcoin halving. So blue line is Litecoin halving, orange line is Bitcoin halving. And we see that Litecoin peaked 6 weeks before it halved against Bitcoin in 2015. And then it sold off leading into the Litecoin halving. And then it dumped really hard and steady and long leading up to the Bitcoin halving and following the Bitcoin halving. So this is what I was really expecting, was a run up in the 6 weeks prior to the halving, and then a sell off in the month leading up, and then this small spike right as the halving is happening, which is kind of like I was just mentioning on Joe's 15-minute Bitcoin chart, where you get a shake out before it breaks up. You also will get the same kind of action before a big move down. You'll get this dead cat bounce, which is kind of a shake up before a break down. And that's exactly what I've been expecting to happen right around the date of the halving. So today's price action is very important to me, and I'm going to be viewing it as a selling opportunity the more that it continues to bounce in these days or weeks following that halving and leading into the Bitcoin halving.
And do you have a kind of a time frame that you think this drop will then happen?
Yes, I would be expecting it to occur over the next year, and even a year and a half, up and past the May 22nd, 2020 date.
Oh, so you're expecting, this is Litecoin we're referring to, yeah? So post this halving, we see it, you're saying we're going to see it kind of spike, keep this up, and then we have until May 2020 to kind of see the result of that?
That's what I'm expecting. A quick little spike here to trap people in who they're waiting for the halving to buy, and now they're seeing the price move up, so they're getting really excited, so they're buying. That's what I'm thinking this is just a little dead cat bounce to trap people in before this long, prolonged downward action that lasts a year and a half or two. That leads into Bitcoin's halving. So yeah, this is Litecoin against Bitcoin.
I think some would say that that's actually kind of good on the volatility spec. If you can get something to hold for that long, I think within the crypto market, it's generally seen as great. Joe, do you share that sentiment?
Yeah, let me pull up a daily chart real quick, just so we can look at a smaller time scale here. So here's Litecoin US dollar. And so overall, yes, I share that sentiment. I agree. I think this is kind of interesting. The fact that people have been calling it, crypto winter ended, altcoin season on, and I think that was kind of a talk of the town. Early around spring, April area, people started talking about that kind of stuff. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that we're not popping the heck off is pretty interesting to me. I mean, if of all the things for altcoiners to celebrate, a happening for one of the top 10 or 15, whatever it is now, cryptocurrencies kind of should have been the thing that really sparked it, because we've seen Litecoin start the momentum for a couple of moves in this run over the past number of months. Litecoin's kind of been, let's say that Litecoin's been an indicator and Bitcoin's been lagging behind. But since we've broken that dominance pair, it's kind of like Bitcoin's been just mooning and everything else has kind of been there or losing dominance, losing value against Bitcoin, and so less than there, So I think with Litecoin, I'm going to have to agree at this point that since, and that analysis was really interesting, the 6 weeks prior to the Litecoin halving was where all the action was. And, you know, that just kind of, I'm happy to make a little bit of money on this pump, and I'm not going to hesitate to get out. If today's the day, it's the day. If you know, it's 3 days from now, I just didn't really see the fact that we weren't pumping into this. It gave me a sense that this wouldn't last long, any sort of price move to the upside. So I will be exiting my Litecoin position really soon. Just, you know, maybe even with stops. I'm not 100% sure, but right now $97.73. So back to the chart here, $97 and change with the peak of $107. Someone's selling into this FOMO, and this is probably, you know, some sort of front runner. Here's probably the 6 weeks, you know, number of weeks prior into the halving. So, you know, quick take a look at the weekly. So, I mean, you really had to get in early in order to make money on this tiny little pump, and it's very possible that we're just going to continue moving down. So I'm not very optimistic on Litecoin, and the halving, it was completely anticlimactic, and I'm not really impressed with this. So I'm not really going to be attached to this asset in any other further upside move.
And if we can kind of move on to XRP. So yesterday there was big news out of Ripple, right? They're with MoneyGram now, official partners. That kind of didn't affect the price too much, but then maybe today with the halving and all the news we have coming out, there is kind of some movement with XRP. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we're going to do the same thing we did with some of these other coins. We're going to look at XRP relative to US dollar, and right now we're up 2% on the day. You know, we had some nice bullish news. Now, let's take a quick look at XRP against Bitcoin, because this, I think, is where it's at. Sock, have you seen this one yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's looking terrible. Relative, let me switch this to a weekly real quick. So relative to on the weekly chart, XRP relative to Bitcoin is not as bad as Ethereum, but I mean, it's looking pretty bad. Sock, do you want to? I see like just a massive descending triangle here, and we've broken what would be pretty much one of the main support areas, and we pumped 100% in this week of September of 2018. And pretty much been a downhill ride ever since then relative to Bitcoin. Had a little bit of technical action on this buy 9, skipped through this one. So this is just not really looking good. I don't think this is really following any technical rules. But Sock, what do you want to talk about here?
I would be highly surprised if it found support above 1,000 sats, which is basically where that next horizontal level of support is. Nothing very interesting to me with Ripple. And I was hoping to share a Bitcoin chart if there is time.
There is absolutely time.
All right, excellent. Because it is the most interesting chart to me right now, because it has come up to test the top end of this bear channel, which I have been watching for a while now. This is a parallel channel, and this is something that's very important to me, is the market structure. What's the overall market structure? Because when the market structure breaks, big volatility happens. Let's take a look back here. We had a parallel channel, you broke the market structure, and boom, you had a huge move. Back here, we had a parallel channel, you broke that, boom, huge move followed. Back here, we just had a horizontal line, big move followed. So what we want to see to confirm a break of the market structure is the average directional index crossing 20. When it crosses 20, that confirms a break of the market structure. So here we see that. Right here, we get a roll up above 20. It turns up above 20 and then crosses the threshold there. Right here, we break through 20 on the ADX right as it is breaking through that channel. So right now we are coming up to test the top of this bear channel, and look at this ADX has started to roll up from below 20. So if this crosses 20 and this price is breaking through this boundary line, then be on the watch out for a large amount of volatility. Until that happens, I think it's very important to stay on the sidelines. For me, this is very much a no trade zone, that as long as we are in this structure with the ADX below 20, this is a spot that I want to be staying away from, but paying very close attention to. So I appreciate you guys letting me pull up that chart.
Now, a quick comment on that, Sock. When you talk about volatility, are you referring to like particular volatility to the upside, or are you saying anything can happen, or to the downside? Is there like any specific take on that?
Yeah, it would be an area where I would expect a big movement one way or the other. Whereas if it tries to break to the upside and it's unable to do so, then I would expect a sharp reaction to the downside, and vice versa, such that it's a very good opportunity in regards to risk reward. The stop losses can be placed very tight in that if you don't get the sharp move to the upside that follows through, then you want to be exiting very quick. Whereas if that does happen like you expect, then the upside will be much more significant than the downside.
Well, there's definitely a lot of speculation in general. As you said before, right? I think it was when we were speaking about Ethereum. Bitcoin is speculative enough. Definitely a lot to look into and to kind of keep getting you guys for your insights on. Thank you very much, Joe Saz, BLOCKTV's analyst, and Sawcruhteez, for joining us today and breaking some very confusing things down for us. For all of you out there at home, keep watching blocktv.com for more blockchain and cryptocurrency news.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.